$1 million. One race. One track that has destroyed more championship dreams than almost any other circuit in American motorsport. And on this particular day, at Dover's legendary Monster Mile, Denny Hamlin didn't just win a race, he sent a message to every single driver in the NASCAR garage that echoed louder than the roar of 40 high-powered engines bouncing off concrete walls. Think about that number for a second. $1 million. Not championship points, not a regular season trophy, not a stepping stone to something bigger. Just pure, raw, undeniable cash sitting at the end of a single race. The kind of money that changes the entire atmosphere in the garage. The kind of prize that makes every crew chief rethink their strategy, that makes every driver push just a little harder, that makes every pit stop feel like it carries the weight of a full season. And Hamlin, a man who has been in this sport long enough to know exactly what pressure feels like, walked into Dover and performed like a man completely unbothered by all of it. But here's what made this victory so special: it wasn't a lucky win. It wasn't a circumstantial result where the right car happened to be in the right place when everyone else ran into trouble. This was a controlled, calculated, dominant performance from a driver who looked at one of the most punishing tracks in motorsport and decided to make it look easy. Denny Hamlin didn't survive Dover that day. He owned it. And yet, the most intense, genuinely heart-stopping moment of the entire race didn't come at the finish line. It didn't come in the final lap when the checkered flag was within reach. No, the real turning point came somewhere in the middle, in a sequence of decisions and reactions that most casual fans completely missed. The most dramatic moment of this race wasn't the ending. It happened right in the heart of the action, and it changed everything. Before we get into the action, we need to make sure everyone watching fully understands what the All-Star Race actually is, because it occupies a genuinely unique position in the NASCAR calendar that makes it unlike almost anything else in American motorsport. The All-Star Race is not a regular points race. In a sport where every single event feeds into a championship standings system, where teams are constantly calculating points margins and playoff implications, the All-Star Race sits completely outside all of that. There are no championship points on offer. A driver can win it and their position in the standings doesn't move by a single digit. So why does it matter? Why do the best drivers in the world prepare for it with the same intensity as a regular season race? Because of the money, yes, $1 million is a genuinely significant prize, but also because of something harder to quantify. Prestige. Momentum. The psychological edge that comes from beating your rivals when nothing is protecting you except your own ability. The All-Star Race strips every safety net away. You can't play it conservatively and settle for a decent finish. You either go for the win or go home with nothing. That dynamic fundamentally changes how drivers approach the race and how the action on track unfolds. Only the best qualify. Previous race winners, past All-Star champions, drivers who have demonstrated consistent excellence, these are the people who earn their place. So when you watch the All-Star Race, you're watching a concentrated version of NASCAR's elite, all under maximum pressure with maximum motivation and absolutely no margin for playing it safe. And the venue made everything more intense. Dover International Speedway. The Monster Mile. A 1-mile concrete oval humbling drivers since 1969. Dover does not care about your reputation, your experience, or your team's budget. One small mistake, a tiny misjudgment of braking distance, a fraction of a second late on the throttle, and your car is finding the concrete wall at speeds that end races and, in the worst cases, end entire seasons. The surface is brutally abrasive on tires. The high-speed corners demand absolute precision because the wall is always present, always waiting. Dover reveals exactly who a driver is, because it demands everything and forgives nothing. And it was on this track, with $1 million at stake, that Denny Hamlin put on one of his finest career performances. To understand why this victory meant what it meant, you need to understand who Denny Hamlin is, where he stood coming into this race, and what the conversation around him looked like in the weeks beforehand. Denny Hamlin is one of the most accomplished drivers in modern NASCAR history. Multiple Daytona 500 victories and decades of front-running performances. The kind of resume most drivers would consider a complete success. And yet Hamlin has always carried a reputation that cuts both ways. His aggressive driving style, his willingness to make moves others consider over the line, his intensity both on and off the track, these qualities have made him one of the most debated figures in the sport. Coming into Dover, Hamlin was facing scrutiny that follows experienced veterans when results don't quite match the expectations their reputation creates. The current season had delivered moments of brilliance but also frustration. There were genuine questions about where Hamlin and his team stood relative to the very best in the field. Some analysts believe that in the increasingly competitive landscape of modern NASCAR, where cars are more evenly matched and margins have narrowed, Hamlin's aggressive approach would ultimately work against him. You can be aggressive when your car is significantly faster. But in a field where everyone runs similar equipment, aggression without precision is just another way to end your race early. That argument had merit. It also underestimated what Hamlin had learned over a career at the highest level. What nobody could dispute was his experience as a previous All-Star champion, the way pressure builds as laps count down, the way a controlled race becomes chaos in a single lap. That knowledge is worth something you cannot find anywhere else. The green flag at Dover dropped and the Monster Mile immediately did what it always does, revealed exactly which teams had prepared properly and which ones were figuring out what they should have solved before arriving. Hamlin's early laps were measured rather than spectacular. There's a version of this story where the dominant winner surges to the front immediately, but that's not what happened, and that's actually part of what makes the performance more impressive. Hamlin and his team were working through the opening stage with a specific plan in mind, building understanding of how the car behaved, gathering information about tire wear rates and how rivals were managing their equipment. Early pressure came from Chase Briscoe, a driver who has built a reputation for exceptional aggression and for finding speed that setup sheets don't always predict. The kind of driver who makes you nervous because he's willing to take the race to you even when patience seems the smarter choice. Eric Jones was another presence, consistently strong at concrete tracks that reward mechanical consistency. The tire wear situation at Dover shapes everything about how races unfold here. The surface is extraordinarily abrasive compared to asphalt tracks. The rubber compound is being ground away at a rate that forces pit stop decisions much earlier and more frequently than teams would prefer. The right front tire takes a disproportionate beating through the high-speed corners, forcing teams to constantly balance keeping that tire alive against pushing for lap time. Clean air is equally critical to understanding Dover. The driver at the front benefits from smooth, undisturbed airflow, their aerodynamic package working exactly as designed. The moment you enter traffic, aerodynamic efficiency drops significantly. At Dover, where corners are fast and mechanical demands are already extreme, the combination of tire wear and dirty air can collapse lap times very quickly. Hamlin was navigating all of this in the opening laps, doing what experienced drivers do, building a picture of the race rather than just reacting to what was immediately ahead. Then, somewhere in the middle, everything changed. This is where we need to slow down and look carefully at what actually happened, because the turning point in Hamlin's Dover victory was not the kind of dramatic moment that replays endlessly on highlight reels. It was something more interesting, a demonstration of racing intelligence and strategic execution that separated Hamlin more decisively than any single aggressive move could have managed. The pit stop sequence that preceded the critical phase was, in retrospect, a masterpiece of timing. Hamlin's crew had been tracking tire wear rates throughout the race with precision, watching not just how Hamlin's tires behaved, but how every relevant rival managed the same problem. When the moment came, the decision was made with the confidence that preparation creates. The pit stop itself was clean and precise, not record-breaking, but without error. In a race where one dropped wheel nut can cost the 4 seconds separating first from the podium, reliability in the pit box is worth as much as raw speed. Restart dynamics at Dover played a central role in how Hamlin's advantage was established. When the field bunches for a restart, lane choice depends on track characteristics, tire conditions, and your confidence in executing through the first corner where restarts are typically decided. Hamlin has been making these decisions at the highest level long enough that the analysis is essentially automatic, choosing the option that maximizes his advantage rather than simply the safest option. The tire management dimension was perhaps the most analytically interesting aspect of the entire performance. Hamlin was extracting more life from his tires than his closest rivals, not by driving conservatively, his lap times were consistently among the fastest, but by managing mechanical loads through corners with the subtle precision that only comes from thousands of hours at this level. The right front tire that other drivers were pushing past its optimal working range, Hamlin was keeping in a window that delivered both grip and longevity. It doesn't look spectacular from the grandstands, but its effects are visible in the data and, more importantly, in where the car sits when it matters most. There was one moment, deep in the middle phase, where a wrong decision could have ended everything. A rival made a desperate move to reclaim lost track position and the gap between the two cars compressed in a way that made the crew on the pit wall reach for the radio. In that fraction of a second, Hamlin's reaction was exactly what separated him from the rest. Not panic. Not overcorrection. A controlled, measured defensive move that protected position without compromising tire condition. It looked easy. It absolutely was not. Everything that had happened in the preceding laps had brought Hamlin to a position of genuine strength heading into the final stage. But Dover being Dover, and Chase Briscoe being the kind of driver who doesn't accept the inevitable until the checkered flag waves, these final laps were not going to be a comfortable procession. Briscoe was closing. The gap that had looked comfortable 10 laps from the end was shrinking in a way that timing screens made undeniable. Briscoe had found something in his car, fresher tire performance combined with a setup adjustment working better in the later stages, and was using it to methodically close down the distance between himself and $1 million. The crowd reaction told you everything about what makes the All-Star Race worth watching. The noise at Dover, that distinctive, echoing, concrete amplified roar unique to this track, built in a way that reflected genuine uncertainty about what was about to happen. The monster mile in those final laps demands everything. Tires passed their performance peak. Car handling shifted as fuel load decreases. Arms tired from wrestling a car that is less planted than at the start. Concentration strained by the sustained intensity of racing at these speeds on such an unforgiving surface. Every decision now carries the full weight of the prize, and there is absolutely no margin for anything less than perfect execution. Hamlin's response to Briscoe's charge was the clearest demonstration of what makes him one of the most complete drivers of his generation. He didn't panic. He didn't change what was working. He didn't take risks that the gap didn't demand. He drove the closing laps with exactly the same disciplined precision that had defined his entire race, protecting the inside line through corners, managing braking points to keep tires from overheating, positioning defensively but not desperately. The team radio communication became its own form of drama, the crew chief feeding gap information and tire data in that controlled cadence great crew chiefs maintain even under maximum pressure. Hamlin's responses clipped and focused, telling his team exactly what he needed from the car in real time. The final restart was the moment where it could all have fallen apart. With Briscoe right there, a bad restart would have handed the initiative to a competitor who had proven willing to take any risk necessary. Hamlin made the right call. And then he defended it. Through the corner where restarts are typically decided, through the run where Briscoe searched for momentum, through the next corners where Dover's walls felt closer than ever, Hamlin held position with composure that looked serene from outside and was almost certainly the opposite from inside the cockpit. The near-contact moment that cameras captured became one of the defining images of the race. Two cars at impossibly small separation, the line between racing incident and disaster drawn in real time. Team radio erupted. The crowd gasped. Both cars came through clean. Hamlin still in front. Briscoe still pushing but no longer close enough to make the definitive challenge needed to take the lead. The checkered flag came down and the reaction was immediate and genuine. The burnout, that smoking, shrieking expression of everything held in check across the race, said everything without a word. The tires screaming against Dover's concrete, smoke rising into the afternoon air, the car moving in the loose patterns of a driver finally releasing the tension of more than 100 laps of maximum concentration. The team's celebration was real in the way that only comes from shared difficulty genuinely overcome. The crew chief, engineers, mechanics, everyone who had contributed to putting Hamlin in position to win understood exactly how many small decisions and precise executions had built toward this outcome. Those hugs in victory lane weren't simply the happiness of people collecting $1 million prize. They were the release of people who had prepared for something genuinely hard and then executed it as close to perfectly as this sport allows. Second All-Star title for Denny Hamlin. $1 million. A dominant performance on one of the most demanding tracks in NASCAR, against the sport's very best, in a format that removes every safety net and forces complete commitment. This was not luck. This was not circumstance. This was a statement victory, the kind that drivers and teams reference for the rest of a season as proof of what the organization is capable of when everything comes together at once. Does this victory make Denny Hamlin the championship favorite? The honest answer is complicated. The All-Star Race has no direct championship impact. Hamlin's points position hasn't changed. But the indirect impacts are real and shouldn't be dismissed by pointing at the absence of championship points. Confidence is not trivial in motor racing. The belief that a driver and team carry into each race, the sense that preparation has been correct, that execution under pressure is reliable, is a genuine competitive advantage. Teams that win consistently don't win purely because they have the fastest equipment. They win because they have internalized a pattern of success that creates certainty in decision-making. Hamlin's Dover performance reinforced exactly that pattern at a moment in the season when that reinforcement carries real value. The championship momentum argument is equally real. NASCAR playoff calculations happen simultaneously at multiple levels, which drivers show genuine win potential, which teams have found something in their car, which rivalries are developing in ways that will create pressure in the closing stages of the season. Hamlin's All-Star win adds a data point that rivals cannot simply ignore. It says, specifically and unambiguously, that in a race where everything was on the line, Hamlin's team made better decisions and delivered better execution than everyone else. Consider the championship rivals. Kyle Larson, by many assessments the most complete driver in the current NASCAR generation, running Hendrick Motorsports with deep resources and exceptional technical talent. Chase Elliott, the fan favorite whose smooth, precise style translates into consistent front-running performances at the tracks where championships are typically decided. Ryan Blaney, the defending champion, carrying the particular pressure that title defense always creates. All of them watched Hamlin win at Dover and drew the same conclusion, not that he is unbeatable, but that he and his team are operating at a level right now that makes them a genuine threat everywhere. What the performance demonstrated beyond raw speed was the quality that separates champions from merely fast drivers, the ability to manage a complete race. Tire discipline maintained deep into the event, strategic intelligence in pit stop timing and restart positioning, composure when being chased by a hungry rival in the closing laps of a winner-take-all race on one of motorsport's most demanding circuits. Complete control. From green flag to checkered flag. The response to Hamlin's Dover victory was immediate and divided in the way his performances always generate the conversation around a result in the social media era, often telling you as much about how the sport is perceived as the result itself. Supporters were detailed in their appreciation. The tire management drew praise from technically inclined fans who understood that comfortable-looking dominance was actually exceptional discipline over an extended period of intense racing. The strategic decisions drew appreciation from fans who recognize sophistication in race management when they see it. For this group, Dover was confirmation that Hamlin and his team were operating at the highest level. The more critical voices raised predictable but not baseless points. Some fans argued that certain defensive moves in the closing laps crossed lines that less established drivers wouldn't have been permitted to approach. The debate about legitimate hard racing versus moves that others would have been penalized for is a permanent feature of NASCAR conversation, and Hamlin's history means any physical racing situation involving him gets scrutinized more intensely than it would involving a driver without his reputation. The question that kept appearing across every platform: did Hamlin deserve this win, or was there an element of fortune in the outcome? The honest answer is that every racing victory involves some element of circumstances, but in this case, the margin of Hamlin's advantage was wide enough, and his management of the race complete enough, that attributing the result primarily to luck requires ignoring most of what actually happened on track. The opinion that matters most isn't any individual fan's take. It's the opinion being formed right now in the garages of his championship rivals, shaped by cold analysis of the data. Those numbers tell a story that no amount of social media debate can change. So, was Hamlin the deserved winner, or did luck play its part? Drop your answer in the comments. Dover has spoken, and what it said was clear. NASCAR's Monster Mile, a track that has humbled legends and destroyed carefully built race leads in an instant, watched Denny Hamlin walk through it on this particular day as if the walls weren't there, as if the tire wear rates were merely a suggestion, as if $1 million prize and 40 elite competitors were simply another set of variables to be managed and optimized. Dominance at this level of motorsport is never an accident. The kind of complete, controlled performance that Hamlin put together at Dover is the product of preparation, experience, talent, and clear-headed decision-making under maximum pressure. His message to the rest of the NASCAR field was delivered not in words, not in bold declarations, but in lap times and strategic execution and composure when the race was hardest. Those are the messages that last longest in a garage full of people who understand exactly what they mean. The second All-Star title sits alongside the first. The $1 million is in the account. The team that executed this win knows exactly what it demonstrated about where they are right now, and their rivals know it too. The championship season stretches ahead with all its variables and uncertainties. Any contender could still find unstoppable form. Fortunes will shift and standings will look different in a month. But right now, in this moment, the conversation about who can win this championship has been definitively shaped by what happened on the Monster Mile. Hamlin didn't just win a race at Dover. He defined a moment in his season, put a flag in the ground, gave his team a reference point for what excellence looks like when achieved under the most demanding conditions the sport can create. The real question hanging over everything as the season moves forward is this: can Denny Hamlin carry Dover's form and momentum to Charlotte, to the Coca-Cola 600, to one of the longest and most physically demanding races on the entire calendar? 600 miles at Charlotte Motor Speedway will test every quality that made Dover look manageable. Different surface, different distance, different demands, but the same field of elite competitors, and the same Denny Hamlin who just made the Monster Mile look like something he had already completely figured out. Will Hamlin be just as dangerous at the Coca-Cola 600? Drop your prediction in the comments. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we will see you after the next race.